Act 5 of Othello, we end the play, and it's a quite bloody end, and it starts towards the beginning of the act where we have the plan Rodrigo and Iago make to basically kill Cassio doesn't quite go as expected. However, we do know early on that Iago doesn't really care how it goes. Iago has nothing to lose here. If Rodrigo dies, then that's great because Rodrigo basically is already uh, lost his patience with the money that he's given to Iago that he thinks is going to Desdemona. Of course, it's not. It's going in Iago's pocket. And of course, he wants Cassio to die. Possibly most of all, he does say around lines 20 that Cassio must die. He says, no, he must die. But basically, whoever dies, it doesn't matter to Iago because both deaths would benefit his causes. Now, the way it goes down is Rodrigo jumps out at Cassio, and basically Cassio gets the best of him, and he wounds Rodrigo. Rodrigo says, "Oh, I'm slain," and he falls down. Now, while Cassio is distracted by Rodrigo's attack, even though the attack fails, Iago comes up behind Cassio and stabs Cassio in the leg. I don't know why he didn't take that time to go ahead and kill Cassio. It does say that he wounds Cassio just in the leg, and it's a bad wound because it causes Cassio to begin screaming. He says, "I'm maimed forever. Help! Ho! Murder! Murder!" Cassio doesn't see that Iago has stabbed him, and Iago immediately slinks away. Othello hears this call of murder, murder, and Othello, even though he doesn't see it, he thinks, oh, good, Iago's keeping up his part of the plan. Iago has killed Cassio. Now it's time for me to kill Desdemona. So this is almost like incentive to Othello because he thinks the first part of the plan is done. Cassio is dead, even though he's not. He's just wounded. Rodrigo is also not dead yet. It's interesting that there are people who are coming to check out the scene here, the ruckus that Cassio's screaming. We've got Gratiano and we've got Lodovico. Who show up and they're like, hey, what's going on here? Iago also shows up. And Iago, before Rodrigo can tell anything, he stabs Rodrigo. Now, we think here that Rodrigo is dead. However, he just grievously wounds Rodrigo. We find out later on that before Rodrigo dies from the wound Iago gives him, Rodrigo is able to come to long enough to kind of corroborate the story of his and Iago's plan that they forged together. So Iago is not effective in silencing Rodrigo's voice. He is effective in delaying it. It's not heard right away, but eventually Rodrigo does out Iago as the villain. But by then, unfortunately, it's way too late, and everything's turned to chaos anyway. So we have here Cassio is grievously hurt. He's hurt real bad. So he's taken off. We've got, of course, uh, Rodrigo's also hurt even worse than Cassio. Um, Iago gives, thinking on his feet here, he gives the reason why he thinks this attack has happened, and he blames it on Bianca. He basically says, "Oh, Rodrigo was one of her suitors, and he was jealous of Bianca's relationship with Cassio." So he says about lines 118, "This is the fruits of whoring." Uh, Blaming this attack on basically beef between Cassio and Rodrigo over the strumpet Bianca, which we know is not true, but it beats the truth that Iago doesn't want heard. Um, we have about line 130, one of the first, if not the first, if not the only, times where we hear a bit of fear in Iago's voice. And he says, this is the night that either makes me or foredoes me quite. So he knows basically this is the all or nothing moment, that either his plan will come to fruition or that he will be undone. Unfortunately, it's kind of both. Scene two, we've got Othello confronting Desdemona in her room, in their room, and she is getting ready for bed. Um, Othello knows that in his mind anyway, he thinks that Cassio is dead, so he thinks that now he must kill Desdemona in the marriage bed. Notice he does warn Desdemona to pray. He says about line 29, if you think yourself of any crime unreconciled as yet to heaven and grace, solicit for it straight. Now, why would he do this? Well, we need to pay attention here that Othello is pretty far gone, and Othello is convinced that Desdemona has not been faithful to him, and he's enraged to murderous end. But he doesn't want he does not want her soul damned. He's not that mad at her, so he does warn her that if she has not prayed for any of her sins, that she does need to do so. Um, because he doesn't want to, when he kills her, he doesn't want her soul to go to hell. Um, he does tell Desdemona, you are on your deathbed. This is about line 56. So Desdemona knows that Othello's not playing around. She tries to talk to her husband. She says, Lord, have mercy on me. And Othello says, I say amen. Desdemona doesn't understand why her husband won't show her any compassion or mercy. Othello says, By heaven, I saw my handkerchief in his hand. O perjured woman, thou dost stone my heart. Now, this is another image we have. Here, the line is like she's thrown stones at his heart, wounding it. But we also know stoning his heart is something we've heard before, that his heart has turned to stone. That's why he's unable to hear, or at least not. He hears it, but he doesn't listen to the appeals that she's making here. That she is completely innocent. That she's done nothing wrong. Um, and Othello smothers her. Now Amelia comes to the room knocking shortly after Othello has smothered her. And Othello lets her in, and he's kind of in a stupor a bit. He tries to cover himself a little bit, but he doesn't try very hard because Desdemona is not quite dead. She's still calling out, and Amelia hears it, and she sees on the bed, she sees her best friend, Desdemona, laying there almost dead. Desdemona says, one of the last things she says, a guiltless death I die. So this is yet again the innocence of Desdemona. Uh, Amelia says, who has done this deed? Now, Desdemona here has the perfect opportunity to tell, before she dies, who did this. And notice what she says. She says two things. She says, first, nobody. And then she says, I myself, farewell. And then she dies. I mean, I guess she was just alive for a little longer before she really does die. You may want to ask yourself, why doesn't she tell on Othello? Not only just that, why does she say, I myself, when asked who killed you? Is this a realization of the fault that she has had in making this plan happen, or is this just her love for Othello that she's trying to protect him? I'm looking forward to seeing what you think on the discussion board. I go back and forth, but I do wonder here, if your life passes before your eyes before you die, if she's seen that life, she may have been able to connect the dots and understand that she has played into uh, you know, by things like defending Cassio at the worst possible time to do so. She may realize that has been ammunition that's been used against her. But she does say, no one has done it, and then she says, I myself. Othello says, she's like a liar gone to burning hell. 'Twas I that killed her. So he confesses, and Amelia doesn't understand why. And Othello begins to uh, defend that he's done it because Desdemona has been cheating on him. And basically, Amelia calls for help. We have people show up in the room. We've got Montano and Gratiano. Uh, we have Iago also show up. And when Othello starts talking, Amelia realizes the guilt that she has in this. because she understands that the handkerchief that she stole for her husband's request has been evidence against Desdemona, and evidence that's led to her death. And so she understands that her husband is a monster. Notice that Iago gets angry because Iago kind of sees the wheels moving in Amelia's mind. Amelia says about 225, "Oh God, oh heavenly God." Iago says, "Zound, hold your peace." Amelia, twill out, I peace? No, I will speak as liberal as the north. Let heaven and men and devils, let them all cry shame against me, yet I'll speak. And Iago says, "Be wise and get you home." She says, "I will not." Amelia says, "O Dulmore, that handkerchief thou speakest of, I found by fortune and did give my husband, for often with a solemn earnestness, more than indeed belonged to such a trifle, he begged of me to steal it." And Iago's like, "Villainous whore." She doesn't shut up, though. She keeps going. "She give it to Cassio? No, alas, I found it, and I did give it to my husband." Iago says, "Filth, thou liest." Iago is really good at holding his mask until now, and here we finally see Iago unable to keep his mask on. It falls, and we may see what's beneath, because notice that although Amelia does reveal basically everything, Iago chooses to kill her, even though it doesn't really save him, it doesn't help him at all, it only hurts him further. But he chooses, when confronted with the truth of his actions, and his actions are revealed, he chooses one more victim, and that victim is his wife, who he stabs and kills because she has spoken against him. We also find out that there's evidence before Rodrigo, before he dies, he's able to speak against Iago and talk about how they had the plan together to kill Cassio. Now, one of the more disturbing parts of this play, I think, is the climax has happened. We've got here finally Iago is revealed to be what he is, and Othello doesn't understand why this is the case. He confronts Iago. Othello confronts Iago, and he says, hold on, this is about line 295. "I looked down towards his feet, but that's a fable." So here Othello's saying basically he's looking at Iago, and he's wondering why Iago did this. And the only thing he can think of is that Iago is the devil. And you would be able to recognize the devil by looking at his feet, because his feet would be cloven hooves, right? Othello says, "If you are the devil, I cannot kill you." And here Othello wounds Iago, stabs him, but notice that it's just a wound. They disarm Othello. Iago says, "I bleed, sir, but not killed." So this is possibly evidence that the evil of Iago may go into supernatural territory, of him being kind of like a symbol of the devil, of evil incarnate. Because, as Othello says, "If you're the devil, I won't be able to kill you right now when I stab you." He stabs him, and Iago says, "I bleed, but I'm not killed." Um, and Othello here says, "Why did you do it? I do believe it, and I ask your pardon. Will you, I pray, demand that demi-devil why he hath thus ensnared my soul and body?" And this is a terrible line. Iago says, "Demand me nothing. What you know, you know. From this time forth, I never will speak word." So here, we, the audience, are kind of like, "Oh, you're kidding me," because we've been told several times throughout the play why Iago is doing this. And notice, though, none of them really quite ring true, because he keeps giving reasons, like, none of them that he's given are quite good enough to explain the fuel and the conviction that Iago has in orchestrating this terrible scheme. And so we finally think we're going to get the answer, but Iago says, "No, you know all you know, and I'll never speak another word." Now, we do have a little bit of consolation that they're going to go torture Iago. I kind of wish we would get to see that scene, but we don't. I guess it happens off stage in a play that was never written. But Othello says, before he dies, he says something. I'm interested to see if you agree with what he's saying or if you think he's lying here. He says, when you shall these unlucky deeds relate, speak of me as I am. This is about line 350. Nothing extenuate, nor set down aught in malice. Then must you speak of one that loved not wisely, but too well, of one not easily jealous, but being wrought perplexed in the extreme, of one whose hand, like the base Indian, threw a pearl away, richer than all his tribe, of one whose subdued eyes, albeit unused to the melting mood, drop tears as fast as the Arabian trees their medicinal gum. Set you down this, and say besides that in Aleppo once, where a malignant and a turbaned Turk beat a Venetian and traduced the state, I took by the throat the circumcised dog and smote him thus. And he stabs himself. He gives himself, basically, he commits suicide here. I'm interested to see what you think of that line that he loved not wisely but too well. Some students think that Othello could not have really loved Desdemona if he's able to do all this, but some students see that love can be, when corrupted, a terrible force, but it had to be there in the first place for it to be corrupted so, as Iago does it. So, another thing that's interesting here that Cassio remarks that he had fear that Othello was going to do this. He says about line 375, this did I fear, but thought he had no weapon, for he was a great of heart. So here, the winner in all this is Cassio. Cassio now will get Othello's job, which I'm not happy about that since I don't like Cassio at all. But some of us wonder, and some stage productions take this kind of. One thing that's cool about if you can see this, if you can see a version of this play performed, it will help it make sense. But it also extenuates like each performance is not the same. People take artistic interpretation, and one that I really like, the Kenneth Branagh version about 1995 with Lawrence Fishburne as Othello. It plays out at the end that Cassio knew before Othello kills himself, knew that he was going to do it, and basically stood by allowing it to happen. And some students say that this is just because this was the honorable thing to do, that this was Cassio giving his friend Othello one more boon before he died. Some students say that this is a darkness of Cassio, that Cassio knows. That if Othello is completely out of the picture, the job is doubtless his because Othello won't be able to give it to anyone else or anything like that. I think it's interesting, an interesting detail to discuss. But we do have here at the end of the play, we've got Rodrigo is dead. We have Desdemona is dead. We have Amelia is dead. We have Othello is dead. Iago will die. So we have quite a bloody play. And when we ask ourselves basically why, I don't think we get an answer of nothing. I think we may get a multitude of answers that we have to kind of pull apart and see how some motivations fit with others. We have to look at who had a hand in all of this, because one thing I'm interested to see, of course, Iago is the villain, but who else in this play acts in a way that hastens Act 5 to its fruition. People like Amelia by stealing that handkerchief. People like Desdemona by lying to her husband saying that she's not lost it. People like Othello. People like Cassio. People like who allows himself to drink too much, even though he knows he shouldn't, and who refuses to apologize for his actions but begs Desdemona to do so on his behalf. The list goes on and on. And when you think about could this have happened the way it does with just Iago's power in it, I think the answer is probably not. So anyway, on the discussion board, tell me what you think of the play, and thank you for your attention. I hope these videos helped. Bye-bye.